A warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, and all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the Entrepreneurship Bootcamp 0 to 1, How to Build the Future. Today's topic is the business of EdTech, and I would like to begin by welcoming the President, IMC, Mr. Khorakiwala, to give the welcome address.
Good morning. Thank you, Vidhi. I would like to welcome the speakers, ladies and gentlemen, and young and the youth who are on this morning session today. A very warm welcome to each one of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the exclusive series of Entrepreneurship Bootcamp 0 to 1, How to Build Future, organized by Indian Merchants Chamber's Young Leaders Forum in association with Knowledge, Skill and Education Committee of IMC. The first session of this series will focus on the business of EdTech. For centuries, teaching methods have mostly been the same, lectures and a blackboard, the chalk and talk method. With the pandemic forcing e-learning on us, it is now majorly driven by technology. This disruption of education is encouraging policymakers to come up with inclusive e-learning solutions to solve the digital divide. The need of the hour at this critical time in an effective educational practice that will develop skills to ensure employability, productivity, health, and well-being, thereby ensuring the progress of the nation. It was Nelson Mandela who said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change our world. I firmly believe the world of tomorrow will be driven by knowledge, machine intelligence, and digital pathways. To prepare ourselves for this transformation and to leverage its limitless opportunities, we have to modify our education system with new relevant courses and deeper research orientation, prioritizing innovation and incubation. India has the third largest scientific human resource pool in the world. If we establish a robust academia-industry linkage, we have the potential to become the R&D capital of this world. Education is not an end, but a means to an end and enlightens life. So the business of EdTech plays a vital role. It is an appropriate time for us to understand this business of EdTech. So let us hear it from our expert speakers. I'd like to welcome Mr. Vivek Varshney, founder of Speed Labs, Mr. Tito EdTechtulna, co-founder and director, Programming Hub, Mrs. Leena Chandran Wadia, senior fellow, Observer Research Foundation, and Mrs. Viva Kagzi, founder and CEO, Reach IV and chairperson, Knowledge, Skill and Development Committee of IMC. Before I conclude, I would like to say a brief background of IMC. The IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a premier chamber of commerce and industry in the country with a rich legacy spanning well over 100 years of excellent service to trade, industry, and commerce. Both central, through its various expert committees, IMC provides policy inputs for the government, both central and state, and is continually engaged in interaction with policymakers at various levels. The chamber is now a cradle for nurturing young talents and promoting emancipation of women through Young Leaders Forum and Ladies Wing, which have become embodiments of youth enterprise, positivism, proactive thought leadership, and movement for women empowerment and entrepreneurship. A large membership base, including over 150 trade associations, enables IMC to reach out to and stay connected with a few lakh business establishments covering diverse areas of economic activity. Also, the chamber has an expansive global network with formal understanding with over 150 chambers and government agencies. Over the years, a galaxy of leaders, both Indian and international, including presidents and prime ministers, have adorned the chambers by their visits. The IMC platform offers its members the benefit of global networking opportunities to explore and expand business. The year-round multifarious activities, including dialogues and discussions with eminent business, political, societal, and government leaders on a wide range of topics, help create an environment for sustainable economic and social development. It is a uniquely enriching knowledge and sharing and relationship building experience. I once again welcome all of you to this exclusive discussion. I am sure you will leave the program stimulated and rejuvenated. Have a great day filled with learning and knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. In 2020, the EdTech industry attracted over $1.4 billion in funding, and the EdTech market in India is estimated to reach $10.2 billion in the next 5 years itself. So to discuss the EdTech sector, we have the privilege to have with us the experts who are the very best. I would like to welcome Mr. Vivek Varshney, founder Speed Labs. Vivek completed his engineering from IIT Kanpur and then his MBA in finance from IIM Lucknow and also a CFA degree. Speed Labs is an advanced adaptive practice and personalized learning platform. The platform provides complete solutions to the learning needs for students from standard 7th to 12th, JEE, NEET, and it includes video lectures, live classes, and algo-driven mentors. It's also our privilege to have Dr. Leena Chandran Vadia with us. She is a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, engaged in research and policy advocacy, primarily in education and skill development. She has contributed to the preparation of India's draft National Education Policy 2019. Leena ji received a PhD in physics from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and has been a researcher at several places in India and abroad, including IIT Bombay. We're also very glad to have with us Mr. Tito EdTechtulna, co-founder, Programming Hub. Programming Hub is one of the fastest growing mobile EdTech initiatives, which is a one-stop solution for learning programming. Within a short span of time, Programming Hub has become the most widely used programming learning app in the US and India, with over 25 million users across 210 countries worldwide. Also extremely happy to have this session moderated by Vibha Kagzi. Vibha is the CEO, the Chief Education Officer at ivyreach.com. Vibha holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and is a Bachelor of Science from Carnegie Mellon University. She has published the book called Break the MBA Code and is on the executive board of the Harvard Club of Mumbai, having served as president for 4 years. She is also currently the chairperson of the Skill and Education Committee at IMC. Vibha is on a mission to provide holistic guidance to young individuals who aspire to reach leading universities and determine their career paths. Thank you so much, Vibha. Do take it ahead from here.
Thank you so much, Vidhi, and another warm welcome to all our esteemed guests. Thank you, President Korakiwala, for the opening remarks. It really did set the tone for this conversation and got all of us stimulated. And thank you, Team IMC, for putting this together, Anita ji, Suzanne, and everyone else behind the scenes who work so hard to make these events happen. So with the thank yous done, let's jump right into today's topic. The first question to all our speakers is, I always wonder, why do we do what we do, right? From a very philosophical perspective. So why have you chosen to do what you do? Let's start with that. And if we don't mind, Vivek, if you could go first, and then maybe Dr. Leena, and followed by Tito.
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for organizing this call. So my answer to this starts from my own journey. And I came from a small town near Mathura, did, entire schooling there. And there was a reason why, many people like us, struggle in the initial phase in the schooling, years. And all of us will agree that the teenage years have the, very important and disproportionate impact on the life trajectory. And it is very important if we can fix the education in the teenage years. So after working for almost 11 years in the financial services industry with the, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche, ICICI Venture Private Equity Fund, at some point I realized that I want to do something in the field of education, and I got excited with this thought that technology can play a role in providing personalized education to each and every student in the teenage years, and make a much more meaningful impact. So that was one thing that inspired me.
So it started from your own journey, growing up in Mathura, not having that sort of access, and now you're providing that sort of access for other people.
Technology can be a great enabler for that.
Sure. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Dr. Leena, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Thank you. I always wanted to be in education and research. So that's not a surprise. But what was a surprise for me was that while I was teaching, I realized that, and I was teaching at the higher education level, mostly master's degree programs, I realized that we're doing something very wrong in education because the students are very underconfident and various other deficiencies I could see. So about 12 years ago, I moved into policy, education policy, because I wanted to understand what are we doing wrong in education and how do we change it. And for someone like me to work at the, to have the opportunity to work in the NEP was, I just thought that if we can give the country a wonderful education policy, everything will be all right. But I know now that that's not true at all. You can write as nice a policy as possible, but everything is about implementation. So
Sure.
we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Teacher, you want to jump in?
Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah, right.
Yes.
So my story is kind of different from how it has been for the other people here, which is very interesting because in our case, what I have always believed is the backbenchers in the class are the ones who are most creative when it comes to finding innovative ways of hacking and learning things quickly. So that has been my insight. And what I've noticed is people tend to create cheats and all these things in order to crack the code, crack the exams. And then later on, what I saw is when it comes to career and when it actually comes to people implementing it in their real life, if such hacks could actually come in play, that would become really handy. So that is how we started creating snippets and programming learning methods in such a way that it could be broken down into small pieces and not the complex structure that is there in the textbooks right now. And we have seen that it has really helped a lot of programmers worldwide who actually want to start a career in IT, especially after COVID. Now many people are switching their careers to move into IT and technology, but they get taken aback because of how complex it is. They find it difficult. When they see a terminal, they get scared. So we were actually able to break it down, going through the backbenchers mentality of how things could be simplified and given in encapsulated nutshells so that they could quickly grasp the concepts and come forward. So that, along with the mentorship we got at Google headquarters, really helped us tailor a new way of learning programming, coding, and the business has thrived since then.
Okay, great. Terrific. Thank you. So it seems like for both of you, there was some sort of trying to service the underdog or the people who are not serviced as much, or the backbenchers who feel like they're not going to accomplish, and then really tap into that market, which is really the large market, and it's really the market that needs the help. So great. Thank you for sharing that context. So once you all decided what it is that you wanted to do, can you walk us through that journey? What did you do initially to set up your organizations? And what has that journey been like so far? And ma'am, please answer it in your own from a researcher perspective as well, huh? Please, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. So should we just go with the same order if it's okay? We'll go with Vivek,
Sure.
Dr. Lena, and Tito for all questions. Okay. You're just on mute, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I think if I were to answer the first 2 months or first 3 months that we should do, or anyone should do, is to articulate the problem that we want to solve and be convinced about that. The solution may go through a few iterations, but as long as
Vivek, if you don't mind, I'll go through the learnings after this. If you could just first walk us through your journey so we understand, so the audience gets a context of what you have gone through. I'll most definitely jump into learnings as well.
Understood. So I started exactly with that. So I thought that within 3 pieces, so there are 3 pieces of learning. One is lecture, second is self-study, and third is assessment. And we all will agree that most of the learning happens in the middle piece, which is the self-study, where you can do revision, practice, analytics, improvement, etc. And only about 20% learning happens in the first. So I thought that this is the problem I want to solve. So I carried primary surveys, interacted with more than 50 students one-on-one, try to define the problem properly, and then when I thought the sense of conviction, then I went about finding a solution about it. So, I mean, my journey started with the defining the problem very, very clearly, and that's how I went about it. I spoke to multiple stakeholders, including the teachers, school principals, school teachers, coaching teachers, parents. And then once I realized that, yes, I'm convinced about solving the middle piece, I had a purpose for solving it, and I had a way to solve it. Then I worked upon it to find a better solution to solve that problem.
Okay, very, very, very helpful. Okay, so first you did your market research, really try to understand direct from the customer and then from the ecosystem. Okay, once you had the problem defined, then how did you go about implementing the solution?
So then I designed a solution. Again, with the solution, I experimented with a few students, saw a very meaningful difference in their learning outcome. We did that exercise for about 2 years in Powai. And once we got super convinced, then we improved the product quality, and then we went national with it. So my journey has been relatively slow in terms of edtech, where everyone expects companies to grow very, very fast within 1 year or 2 year time frame. We have been relatively very slow. I mean, I took almost 3.5 years to perfect the product without even selling it. And
Okay, wow.
so
Okay.
and then I started selling it. So I don't know, I mean, this is the right approach or no, but I mean, I'm just sharing what I did.
Your journey. Okay, great. Okay, so I like that. Very, very unique, because and thank you for bringing that out, huh? Because a lot of young people think that, because of the success of like white hat in the edtech sector, people think you start a company, 1 year later Byju's will come, buy you out, and you're done and you're free for the rest of your life. It's obviously not that easy. It doesn't happen in every case. And you really did go, 2 years on an MVP is a lot of time and investment, but you wanted to make sure that you're that thorough. Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thank you, Vivek, for bringing that perspective. Ma'am, would you like to share your journey?
Yeah, so I haven't built a company, though I did work as a chief technology officer in a startup which is in the telecom space. So I won't go into that. I'd like to just put in a word of appreciation for what Vivek said, that he spent time perfecting his product. We have to understand that education is for everyone. And what EdTech does is enable scale. And so what works in a few people need not necessarily work at scale. So when entrepreneurs actually spend time understanding education and understanding how to do it best and then scale it out, then I think you have a better chance of reaching the largest number of students. So I'll stop here. I want to pass on this question. Yeah, thank you.
Tito, we're here waiting.
Yeah, sure. So like Leena madam mentioned about having scale, that really resonated with our journey as well. So when we started initially, we were developers at IT MNCs, me and my co-founder, my friend. We created an app to help ourselves learn new programming languages and new technologies quickly. And especially for that reason, we only had code snippets because we were already programmers. So we need not again go through the basics. So in our case, it was like we created code snippets which we could quickly refer from mobile phones, and we simply published it on Play Store.
What I heard so far, everyone, is that they already were coders. They had that expertise, and they quickly published their snippets on Google Play Store, correct?
So in our case, we created an app that had all the code snippets back in 2013-14. That is when Android was relatively new. So we had published our app back then, which had only code snippets and which developers could quickly refer in order to learn any new programming language. So it was all code based. And later on, what we realized is there is a vast audience that we were actually missing out on. So if there were 10 developers, there were probably 1 million other beginners who actually wanted to learn programming. So we changed our entire approach. We ourselves had to unlearn a lot of things, and we had to sit with absolute beginners in programming to understand what their problems are, where they are facing issues. And like I mentioned earlier regarding backbenchers, if there are 100 backbenchers, there would be one topper in class. So we rather wanted to do at scale, like Leena Madam earlier mentioned about scale. So our entire focus was to go on scale and not just focus on one or two extra bright students, and rather build for a generic audience. So that has really helped us go bootstrapped. So initially Google had funded in our venture, but since then we haven't really had to take any more funding, and we are completely profitable right now, thanks to all the scale that has really worked in our favor.
Tito, you're taking over all my questions. Just give me your journey. I want to get into
Oh, yeah.
funding, scaling. Those are all my questions. Don't steal my show.
So sorry,
Just,
Vidhi.
just tell me about
So,
your journey,
yeah.
please, because I really want to understand how did you start and how
Yeah.
did you grow the business? That's just part of that's just a 1
Sure.
minute answer I'm looking for. If you could help,
Absolutely.
please.
So we started with publishing an app. Simply, it was initially meant for ourselves alone, and we
Okay.
saw there is good traction on it, and we thought to build on it. That is how it started. So along with when we were working in our IT companies, that is when we started it as a part-time project, and then eventually we realized it has potential, and we quit our jobs and then pursued it full time.
Okay, so there was a time you were parallelly you had a fixed income coming through your job, and you had started up.
That is correct. Yes. So
Okay,
it
how
was
long was
like,
that overlap for?
so it was probably 8 months or so, wherein we had seen traction growing in the app, and then we decided to move out of it, move out of
Okay.
our permanent jobs. Yeah.
Okay, what was that turning point for you? For like, young people who want to sort of hedge their bets and do that. What is the turning point?
Yo, so, that is very good question. So Viva, there is a leap of faith that everyone has to take at some
Yeah.
point. So initially, of course, there was no revenue in it. It was all gut feeling and seeing the potential that helped us take that leap. So basically, we were young, and I mean,
We're
even
still
though we
young.
are young, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But at that point, we were like, we didn't have any responsibilities, and we were not scared of attempting to do things. And any which ways, the corporate life was totally not for us. That is something we understood after a certain point in time, that we had to take things at our own hands. And we also realized that tomorrow, if this doesn't work, still we can go back to that corporate journey and corporate life because of the learnings and experience that we had. So this risk was totally worth taking, is what we thought, and we took that leap of faith.
Okay. But you had a turning point where you felt like after 8 months you had vetted the product in some capacity and the concept at least in some capacity.
That is correct. So when we saw that we already crossed 500,000 downloads in just 8 months, so we knew there is potential in it. Maybe we are not understanding the real deal here. So
Sure.
that is when we wanted to go full in and see.
Okay, great. Okay, that's very helpful. So there's a similarity here. For in Vivek's case, it was 2 years of MVP. In your case, it was 8 months. But for both of you, you made sure you'd vetted the product, vetted the idea, and then you went full hog. Okay, great. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Guys, I also see here Mrs. Khurakiwala, who's the chairperson of the ladies wing. She's the president. So President Khurakiwala, would you like to come in here and say a couple of words for our guest here today, please?
It is good morning. Good morning to everyone. And the first time I'm hearing Vibha. So Vibha is a darling girl. And actually, I don't need to say anything. I'm learning here.
Okay, sure. Okay,
it's
good.
great.
I just wanted to acknowledge your presence. So
Yes,
thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
All the best to all the winners here, and those who are on the move. All the best to you all too. Thank you.
Okay, I want to touch upon a little bit about the ecosystem, right, that we all live in. What do you define as your ecosystem in terms of the stakeholders that you have to interact with on a daily basis? Which of those stakeholders are working well for you, and which of those stakeholders do you wish that something would change?
So Viva, for us, our product is a B2B2C product. So we sell our study login subscriptions to the teachers and things, which is a unorganized, 90% unorganized after school segment. And there is a 10% organized segment where all the big online, offline players are there. So for us, it was a learning that many of them were not so tech friendly. In fact, a good percentage did not even have laptops. And this was a great opportunity. Obviously, there was a lot of pain, but this was also a great opportunity for them to upskill and move up very, very fast. So while we interact with everyone, schools, after schools, parents, students, everyone, but one stakeholder where, to answer your question, one stakeholder where we have seen a lot of change and we still think a lot more to be done is these many teachers. And I can share, from my experience, this goes well for both teachers. I mean, in school teachers and after school teachers, there is a lot of learning that needs to take place, and a lot of investment in infra also, because unless you have a good quality laptop, many things, even if you want to do, you can't do, right? So who invests in that? So I think in that sense, a little bit of management of schools or governments or anyone. So I think there are dual problems that I see in my space. One is their journeys or comfort with technology, understanding of technology, and imbibing it as an integral part of their pedagogy. That's number one. And second is an infra issue.
Okay. So are you talking largely about the public school system here in India?
No, even in private school. I mean, in private school also, there are, a large category of schools where the teachers are, not paid well or underpaid in my sense, right? Now, if with that kind of income, their job is to go to the school hours and take care of the school responsibility rather than investing on their infra to scale up. So I'm saying, if you look at the number of schools, just about 10% schools have fees to invest proportionately in infrastructure. Most of them don't take enough fees. So, and when they don't take enough fees, they don't pay to the teachers. So my point is simple, like the teachers, the way they think is it's a 9 to 3 job or whatever, 8 to 3 p.m. job. And their job is mostly in the physical classroom environment, and they don't need to buy infra on their own. But I'm saying once you buy it, then it becomes an integral part of your daily routine. You can experiment, you can learn much more with more free time. So I think both things. One is obviously the intentions, the learning journey, and consumption behavior change. But after that, it is also a role of infra.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So you're saying there is definitely an infrastructure deficit in the country. People don't have access to laptops, and even the sort of remuneration they're making on a monthly basis is not adequate to fill in this gap. Okay, great. Okay, big. That's a big problem. That remains a large issue for everyone who talks about the EdTech boom in India, and then you go to the grassroots level and you realize that, well, they don't even have the laptops. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Vivek, for that.
So I guess it's my turn. So yes, I agree that teachers are a very, very important set of stakeholders. Students are too, parents are too, because it's the parents who drive the coaching industry, which are the first few unicorns in EdTech. Essentially, EdTech enabled the coaching industry to go online, and they sort of cater to people who can afford to pay. But COVID showed us that infrastructure is very, very, very crucial. In so many places, we've seen pictures in the newspapers about kids climbing trees to get access to signal, actually. So there isn't enough deployment of cell phone towers or enough deployment of fiber connections. All of these are in the pipeline, but they are not high priority, so they move very, very slowly. And so, connectivity is a huge problem. Devices are a huge problem for inclusive access to technology. And in fact, one of the big advantages of technology is the ability to enable inclusive access. But
Sure.
we have, as a country, we have a long way to go towards that. So that's
ma'am, I want to get your perspective as a researcher, but from your perspective, in policy implementation, who are your stakeholders?
So, of course, for government schools, it is governments, actually. And for private schools, it's the managements of schools. Vivek mentioned that teachers are badly paid, and teachers are badly paid on both sides, actually. Everybody talks about government teachers being well paid, but the teachers who have the pay commission salaries are a very small minority. Most governments are hiring teachers on a contract and paying 7,000 rupees a month, and ridiculous numbers like that. as a country, if we don't invest in our students, and for investing in our students, we have to invest in our teachers. We haven't done that. And that is actually alarm bells ringing, so loudly, but we don't seem to want to listen actually. So what Vivek is addressing is teachers who are being convinced to invest some of their meager income into tech infrastructure for themselves to do better. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, great. Okay. Tito, down jump in.
Sure. Yeah, Vibha. So basically, the question was regarding stakeholders and whom we consider the most important stakeholders, right? So in our case, the most important stakeholder would be the students themselves. As they say, the end user is your boss. They are the final stakeholders. They are the decision makers, and they decide whether they like your product or they don't, right? So end of the day, for us, it has always been the students who are actually learning on our platform, who are the end stakeholders, and we give them utmost value for they have invested their time, they have invested their money into learning through our platform, and we make sure whatever the time they are spending is fruitful for them. So that is how it has been for us. Stakeholder has always been number one, the consumer.
Customer.
That is the end user.
Okay, I love that. There's one line I'm going to take away from today. It's going to be this: the customer is the boss. I'm going to put it up on my wall now. So Tito, thanks for that. Customer is always the boss. Absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about a little bit about funding, right? Because we all have great ideas. We have policy makers. We as entrepreneurs are always bubbling with ideas and concepts. Where's the money going to come from, right? Once the friends, schools, and family runs out. So tell me about your funding journeys. Did you bootstrap? Did you raise money? Have you raised money? Is there a plan to raise money? Just tell me everything about the M equation, because that's obviously the most pivotal one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think to my co-panelists as well as co-educators who are either already running education companies or planning to start, funding is important, because if you want to bring a real change, sometimes it requires a lot of research, R&D, experimentation, and to get a right team on board, you definitely require funding. And funding can decide many things in your trajectory for many things. It's not just for marketing purpose. Marketing dollars are easy to understand, but even there is a lot that happens behind the scene, and for that you require right people, and for right people you require a little bit of funding and also for experimentation. So I would definitely advise to take some funding. Obviously,
Vivek, we want to hear your journey. What has your journey been in terms of fundraising?
So I started with obviously, as you rightly said, friends and family round. Before that, I put my own money, sizable money, and because
you put your own money. You put some of your own savings.
For about 11 years before I started up. So first money was my own money. Then I raised money from my ex-colleagues, mostly from the banking industry. And I kept raising small money for first 3 years, because I was not selling the product. I was just building it. So before that, nobody wanted, no institutional round or any serious professional investor would touch. Most of the money that I raised was from my friends and ex-colleagues in the first 3 years. After that, I have raised money on the crowdfunding platforms like Succeed Venture, Let's Venture. A very known family office has participated in funding recently. And we are definitely looking to scale up. And when at this stage, when we are looking to break out, we definitely would be trying to get a larger pool of funding.
Okay, great. Vivek, I think
one
of the.
I just wanted to highlight. Sometimes, which I agree with Tito, is that sometimes if you don't have responsibilities, then it becomes little easier, because at least your personal equation is sorted. And in my case also, but I had responsibility, I had family. In my case, I saved that much money that I don't have to draw even a single rupee salary from the company for first 3 years. So my equation was solved in that manner, and I think Tito's was solved in a very different manner. But as a founder, you must solve your personal equation partially or fully, whichever way it works for you, so that it doesn't bother you. It's going to be a tough journey. If you are mentally bothered about your own family finances, it will reflect in your ideation.
Absolutely. Vivek, thank you for sharing this perspective. First of all, I love the integrity, right? That you did not even go to your colleagues or family. First, you put in your own money. When somebody parts with their own hard-earned money that you accumulated over a decade's journey in finance, that in itself is a gold stamp for me. That you're validating your own idea by putting in your own money. As you know, very few entrepreneurs have that sort of integrity. Everyone tries to raise money off the bat. So thank you for that. And I also want to touch upon one more thing that Vivek just said is, a lot of young people, and since this is largely a youth audience, are always in this rush, especially because EdTech is so hot right now. We all see the valuations, $12 billion, and everyone says, okay, someone's, I'm going to start this, and 1 year later it's going to be snapped up. We hear about, you hear about the 2 startups that got snapped up in the newspaper. For every 2 startups that get snapped up, there's probably 2,000, 20,000 more in the ecosystem that are probably going to have to shut down at some point. Everyone knows the venture capital number, right? Less than 1% of companies that venture capital firms fund actually even go on to become something big. So Vivek, thank you for being so candid and saying that, first you took care of your family, you made sure you had enough money in the bank, and only then did you go out and venture out into something that is seemingly risky because you didn't want to put your family at risk. So thank you. Thanks for being so candid. Appreciate it. Ma'am, we'll go over
directly to. I'll pass it directly to Tito because this is a business.
Is there a money angle, ma'am, in policy making? Where does the money come from for the implementation of the policies that you guys come up with?
From the education policy perspective, I would say that government has the ability to induct technology. And when government inducts technology, it goes out to scale. The example of Tito's company, Programming Hub. I mean, every child needs to learn programming in secondary school, because that's when they are, full of, and also it prepares them for a longer career in technology. So if governments would come in and evaluate established and good technologies and induct them, then good edtech companies can grow quite fast. But so that's the reason why the education policy has recommended the creation of a national education technology forum, a forum where entrepreneurs can bring their solutions, and these solutions for schools and colleges and universities can be evaluated and recommended to government for induction. So that's the mechanism that we have provided, because governments also find it hard to decide what it is that they should have. So if you have the right panel with educationists and everyone, all the stakeholders in this decision making involved, then entrepreneurs can find ready acceptance of good edtech solutions. So we are hoping that this will happen. And I think this the effort to set it up is already underway, not just at the center, but also at several state levels. States are also creating such a forum whereby they can evaluate technologies for induction.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to take a question from the audience from Rohan, which is actually very relevant to what you're talking about. Rohan's asking, are there any policy schemes that would help to raise money in edtech? So is there anything from the government's perspective that's out there?
Not that I know of. No. No.
Okay. Nice to take Rohan's question.
That's not a part of policy. You see, the government likes to leave that to the market. So, yeah.
Okay. Would you, either of you know, Vivek or Tito, are there any policy schemes out there?
Yeah, no, so I mean, there are no such policies. In some very specific cases for the skill development oriented courses, they can find a way out to get some grants. But as a founder, I will never advise anyone to rely on this as of today. I very much hope that the situation changes in the near future. But as of today, they should either look for their own finances or raise capital from outside. Whatever they need, they will end up wasting a lot of time in figuring this out, unless they are in certain specific sections. Because as Leena ma'am rightly said, that government has no business to try out and fund every experiment,
sure.
Unless it is proven.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Vivek. Tito, over to you on the funding journey. And I think because you raised some money from the Google Startups Challenge or the whatever forum they have, if you could talk about that, so they understand what are other platforms to raise money from. Are you frozen? I think your screen is frozen. He is frozen, right? He couldn't be so still for so long.
No,
No.
I think he
Yes,
is.
there is some network issue, teacher.
Yeah, he's having a network issue.
This is a skill that no AI model can give him. Okay, he is frozen for sure. Okay.
That's an infrastructure issue. That's an infrastructure issue.
Right there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, our telecom networks are also not sized enough for the kind of usage that we are seeing online post-COVID. We are all doing everything online. So you can imagine thousands of video flows on networks that were not built for that. So Tito's back. Let's give it to him. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, sorry everyone for the slight interruption in terms of my internet connection. So coming back to the question regarding funding and how to manage money, that is a very relevant question. I mean, most of the entrepreneurs and starters in this business, and especially in any other business, would think about this one or the other time. Apart from passion for working, at the end of the day, money is very important, because one person alone cannot build an entire establishment or a company. It is always the effort of the team. And to keep the team motivated, there has to be flow of cash going in and out. Only then it works. So in our case, it sounds like a fairy tale. But to be honest, almost twice it was at the verge of shutting down when it initially started. So like you said, it is mainly because of money and people problems that this happen. And money in turn also leads to people problem as well, because initially when you
So
start
what
for
was
the
the
first,
journey? You bootstrapped in the beginning? You went with your
yes,
own money? Okay.
that is correct. So in the beginning, it was all sweat equity. We didn't have to actually put our money. So it was all sweat equity, because we were developers, and mobile apps hardly require any sort of funding to publish the app. It's just $25 on Google Play and it's $100 on Apple. So you just need the developer accounts, and you can put in your time and efforts and create an app and publish. But post that, to develop, you need teammates, you need team members, you need designers, you need prototyping, and a lot of other steps that go into it. That is something which we realized later on. And that is when the real money play comes in to power. When you need a team and you need people motivated to work with you, they also need money to be motivated enough. It is not just words that work actually in this case, right?
So where did that money come from in your case? Like, what did you do?
Right. So initially we were able to generate a little bit of revenue from the app itself, but it was definitely not enough. It was not even 1/10 of what we needed. So fortunately, we were selected by Google for their Launchpad Accelerator program, wherein they would take us to their headquarters in California and train us. And they also would fund us $50,000, which was an equity-free funding. So that initial boost helped get the team together, and then work for at least 5 to 6 months with that capital, so that on top of that we could build with the revenue that was coming from the app. So that really helped, the initial funding that they had. So I would recommend I mean, startups who
So
are looking at
can you
doing
talk a
bootstrap.
little bit about this more? Like, how did Google select you? It's amazing. What did you do that was unique, and how come you got selected, so that other people know what to do and how to build their pitch decks for Google Startup Challenge?
Right. So basically, it was in 2016, and Google selected only 6 companies out of 10,000 applications or so that they had got.
Wow.
So what Google looks for is potential in terms of growth or scale that a particular startup can achieve. And they look at the numbers. So basically, they saw that within 8 months, we had close to 800, 900,000 downloads. So they knew there is potential. And prior to that, there were other challenges from Google and other companies in which we would constantly participate. So what happens is, not once but twice or thrice, when you consistently are participating in such events, you tend to get recognized. So that somewhere helped us get noticed, and that is how they selected us from among the other 6 that were selected back then. And ShareChat happened to be one of those, and so on and so forth. But out of the
Wow.
6, we were the only ones that were
Good job,
bootstrapped.
Tito. Congratulations. Huh?
Good job. Yeah.
Good job. 6 out of 10,000 is no mean feat. Huh? Congratulations. Really, wow.
Yeah, so it was basically the numbers and consistency that helped us get through, I would believe. And we were the only startup there that was not initially funded. We were the only bootstrap startups. So Google only looks at numbers, not just funding rounds that you're taking. So they see potential and accordingly select. So we
So
got
you said
selected
your
for that.
scale, it was scale, your consistency, and just being around, like going out there and just putting yourself out there. Okay.
That is important. Yes, to get recognized, you have to initially participate in such
In
events. I
many
mean,
challenges. Okay. Great.
exactly. Unless you are looking at funding alone. Yeah,
So what happened when that money ran out? What was your next
that is
milestone?
correct. So after that money ran out, we realized before that money ran out, we had to build something that was valuable. So from the Google journey, what we realized is when you build value, people tend to actually shell out their money. That is when they see your worth, and that is when they distinguish your product from others. When they see that this product is giving me this kind of value which no other product can give, that is when they take out their money and invest in you.
No, so, sorry,
So
my question is, what was the next fundraise for you?
yeah, so after that we actually didn't raise any funds,
Oh, okay.
and this almost, like I said, it almost sounds like a fairy tale, because this doesn't generally happen. This is a very, very rare case wherein a startup is actually able to build enough revenue to sustain and then also be profitable. So right now we are doing $4 to $5 million without raising a single penny from outside. So that is just,
Wow, Tito, you get one more round of applause. Yeah.
thank you so much,
That's
Vidhi.
amazing,
So that,
because not giving away equity is also something people need to understand. Like I feel a lot of youth is just like, oh, I just want to build and sell. But even I come from a very traditional mindset. I've had my company for 10 years, and people say, why haven't you divested? I say, I don't want to give away my equity so cheap. I will build something bigger and then sell it. The idea is not just to build and sell. The idea is to really build and create value, which is what you've also been able to do very successfully. So, okay,
that is true.
congratulations. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. To the audience, if you have any questions, just keep putting them in the chat box. I've got one eye on the chat box and the other eye on all the little grids I see here on Zoom. Dr. Leena, a little bit about you, because I really do want to make sure we get some of your learnings and experience. Let's talk about the NEP, your role in the NEP, some of the key facets of the NEP that you'd like to highlight to some of us ignorant folks here. Okay, let's start there. Let's go there.
So for most of you who have read if you have read the NEP, you will see that the NEP actually does not say that much about technology. And it's not because technology is not important, but it is, it has to be a judicious selection of technology. And this is why we acknowledge that the technology, there are 4 buckets roughly. The first main one is teaching, learning, and evaluation of students in schools, colleges, and universities. The next one, which is also very important, is teachers, teacher initial preparation and teacher continuous professional development, because as technologies change, they also need to be brought up to speed. So that's the second big bucket. The third big bucket that technology enables is inclusive access to education. And by inclusive, I also mean children with physical and other disabilities, but also people in remote areas and all of that. Though there are many sources of disadvantage. So inclusive access to technology for disadvantaged people, that's something that technology can do. And the last, of course, is education, planning, administration, governance. You need a lot of technology to do education planning and governance. In terms of usage of technology, there is mainstream usage inside schools, inside classrooms. So that would be products like, digital classroom products or AV and things like that. And then there would be supplemental, technologies for supplementing mainstream classroom, which is basically tutoring, coaching, industry, personalized adaptive learning, which is growing a lot. So that bucket is the biggest bucket at the moment in terms of edtech businesses, which is people who understand the value of technology, going outside of classrooms and learning more. But there is also another bucket, which is sort of very big and growing very fast, which is lifelong learning. And lifelong learning is just an umbrella word to say that all of us, even established programmers or technology people, I myself have a very strong technology background. My PhD was in high performance computing. So we all need to learn new things as we go forward. So there is a huge potential for converting, this need for lifelong learning without any age barriers. From very young people to very old people, we all need to take short courses to bring up to speed. And so lifelong learning is another usage bucket. So the three major usage buckets for EdTech is that. And the policy has therefore sort of very, in a very, what shall I say, careful way. We said we have to carefully induct technology. I will give you two examples of very good things that have already happened. So one is the academic bank of credits, which the government has rolled out, okay, which says that anybody, whatever credits you earn in school or college at whatever time, you bank it with the government. And you can go out and work somewhere, earn some money if you need to support your families, and then you can come back and continue learning. And when you have sufficient credits for a degree, you'll get it. Okay, so this is a very, very forward-thinking, move that has happened, and I think EdTech industry can really leverage this a lot. The other thing that we have done, or rather the government has done, is to say that as much as 40% of the formal credits towards a degree can come from online learning. Which is another forum where private and, educational institutes and industry can collaborate. So we have, for example, early examples of IIT Madras collaborating with Upgrad to give upgrad courses to IIT Madras students while they are there and giving them credits for it. So I'm sure there are other companies, I'm sure. I'm not sort of following that whole industry, but basically, within educational institutions can tie up with EdTech companies to give credits to their students while they are still in school. So all this has been enabled by the policy. You see, the 86 policy came just before the internet explosion. And so the policy didn't enable many provisions, but this policy has enabled many far-thinking provisions for making use of EdTech to give quality education to the maximum number of students. I'll stop there.
Okay, wow. Okay, this is great to know. I actually didn't know about this 40% rule, and I think that's really big for all of us in this space, because if it becomes a government mandate, then obviously it facilitates massive scale and almost validates a lot of the EdTech.
But it says up to 40%. It's up to the educational institutions. They can allow EdTech companies and private sector to teach those courses, and the university or college or school will give credits for it.
Recognize that.
These partnerships have started opening up, which is a huge potential for EdTech.
That's huge.
Very
huge.
Tito,
the 4 million is going 100x very soon with this policy.
Yeah,
okay, all right. Okay, as we are nearing the end of our time here, I want to jump into some learnings. So Vivek, starting with you, through this journey, some key learnings. I don't want to call them mistakes, but the learnings you had along the way, and what, if anything, would you have done differently if you had the chance to rewind and start over?
Sure. No, I think I have plenty of them. So, so I will list down 3, which in my opinion were very, very important. The first one is that I spent a lot of time in building the right team, and it took me more than 3 years to get the right people onboarded, and which actually slowed down quite a few things. So first learning is that in the initial few months, focus a lot on finding. So I'm a single founder. So if you can find a co-founder, it makes a lot of sense in many cases. So spend a lot of time in finding either a co-founder or a very senior colleague who can be partner in your journey in the first 1 year. That makes a lot of difference. Second learning is that as Indians, we somehow miss the importance of UI UX So I will definitely advise all the listeners that spend a lot of time on UI UX while you may still be driven by the functionalities, but ultimately the UI UX and the customer experience or the consumer experience makes a lot of sense, a lot of difference. And the third is again, I mean, go either you solve the financial problem by raising capital, or you bootstrap to a level where it doesn't affect your growth. So definitely solve the money sooner than the later. So these are the three big learnings. So team, UI UX, and the capital.
Okay, fantastic.
So if I can take 1 minute as the next, because
Yeah,
I
please.
I won't have learnings to share, but I just wanted to share something very important, that Central Square Foundation and IIT Bombay have come together to launch a product called EdTechtulna. Tulna is the Hindi word for comparison, but it's not about comparison. It is about helping edtech companies to refine their products based on what is really needed in learning. So they've put together learning sciences, human computer interaction, psychology, everything. So Vivek talked about how you have to make the experience easy, the learning experience easy for students, the UI and everything. So this product actually looks at various parameters. They've come up with parameters in 3 buckets: content, good quality content, pedagogy alignment, and the tech itself, which is the UI. And also if you're designing a personalized learning app, how good is the adaptability and so on. I would urge all edtech companies to go to the EdTechtulna website on IIT Bombay. They have also offered help to edtech companies to rate their products and keep improving it so that it becomes something that all students want to learn out of. So that is something that is worth looking at. Thank you.
So to add on to that, what Vivek already touched upon was a very important point in terms of learning. The number one point being team. Of course, it has to be the team. He also mentioned about co-founders, which is absolutely correct. Your partner has to be perfectly in alignment. I mean, it is said that your partner has to have understanding even more than your life partner, as in more than your spouse or wife. That person has to understand you, and both of you have to be hand in hand. That is the only way a company can grow and team can move forward. Otherwise, if there is even 1 ounce of doubt between both the founders, it will always end up in a bad way. That is what I have seen and learned. So that is very valuable point. Apart from that, another point I want to add is regarding unit economics. I don't know how many startups today are thriving for that or consider that as a parameter, but unit economics is very important, because whenever you build a product, either you can build it for masses or you can build it for niche. Usually it is not the case that you can build for both. That doesn't happen. So you have to be very clear right from the start whom you're building it for. Because during our discussion, the point also came across that laptops and infrastructure is a problem, right? But then what we realized is today maximum penetration of mobile phones and smartphones are there. Even among the underprivileged section of the society, they still have access to Android phones because of how cheap they are. So we rather focused on going mobile first rather than going website first. So such aspects of technology help us understand where our product should stand. Should we scale to masses or should we actually focus on niche? So all of these decisions are very important in the beginning of your journey itself, so that later on you don't realize that you have built something for someone and then it is not actually able to cater to them. So the product market fit, which most of the venture capitalists and most of the industry specialists look for, initially you will have it figured out once you know whom you're catering to.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Just I've put everybody's learnings in the chat box. So for anyone who missed any one of these golden words shared by our panelists, you can use my little cheat sheet and take those home. Thank you all for sharing everything that you have. Very deep and personal insights, very candid conversation. Really appreciate the candor, really appreciate the sharing. It's not that easy to share what you've gone through. And Vivek, you were so honest about the mistakes you made. I really appreciate that. Dr. Lena, thank you for giving us an alternative perspective, because we are all, as entrepreneurs, so blinded by what we do every day. We lose sight of what is the government doing, and typical entrepreneur mentality is like the government doesn't. Government is a hindrance. But when you tell us that the government is now saying 40% of the curriculum could potentially be outsourced to an edtech company, it obviously throws light that that there is definitely at least an attempt by the government to build a joint ecosystem. So thank you for sharing that. Tito, you're all about inspiration. I'm super inspired just listening to your journey, how you built this, and where you've gotten so far, and how you haven't let go of even 1% of your equity so far. So kudos to you, and thanks for inspiring this entire panel. Thank you to everyone for listening. And this has been a great EdTech panel. We use technology and we've learned so much from each other. So very much in line with today's topic. Going to let everybody go just on time. So thank you, everyone. And thank you once again to the IMC, everyone behind the scenes at the IMC for doing what you do to make all this learning possible. Anita ji, Suzanne, and everyone else in the IMC backend. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. We'll let everyone just log out.
Thank you, Vibha. You've been a great moderator. Congratulations.
Okay.
And best
Thank you.
wishes.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Vibha.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, she's been wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Tito. Thank you, Vivek. I learned a lot from listening to you both. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vibha, so much for conducting this. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Dr. Leena. And thank you, Tito. Thank you so much. I'll just hand it over to
Absolutely.
Shardul to give the vote of thanks. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, respected President of IMC, Mr. Khorakiwala, respected Mrs. Khorakiwala, respected all the panel members of today's wonderful session, respected dignitaries from IMC. At the outset, I must thank our core anchor, Vibha, for having conducted this wonderful session very, very efficiently. Although being a Saturday morning, I think I personally enjoyed the entire session really very much. I must start with Vivek. I think Vivek, started with his humble background and the way he saw the various opportunity he had in spite of the various problems, and the way he spoke and gave the journey. I think it was very insightful. Thank you so much, Vivek, for sparing your valuable time and giving the insight. I must also thank Dr. Leena Chandran Wadia. I think from the policy perspective, it is very important for us to know what the government is thinking and also to align our views and our thoughts in alignment with what the government is thinking, so that we can synergize and we can bring more value and more result oriented field. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time. And last but not the least, Tito, thank you so much for giving your insights. You have been the most exciting speaker, and from what we heard from you, in spite of having no outside financial support, also you have been doing so well. We wish you all the very best. Once again, thank all our valued participants who have taken out their valuable time on this Saturday morning to have come here and got enriched from this session. Once again, I would like to thank IMC and all the staff of IMC, as well as the President, Mr. Khorakiwala, for having faith in YLF, as well as, I would like to thank Vibha for very well anchoring this particular session. Thank you all once again. And once again, thanks to Vidhi for, very ably heading the YLF. Thanks to all the participants and thanks to all of you. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
All the best, everyone.